You know good things are going to happen when you don't wear pants, because if it's not a fun adult activity, it means sweet, delicious sleep.
Yes.
Oh, the warm embrace of a snuggly blanket and no commitments for the next 12 hours. Okay, there we go. Well, I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Me too. Why don't you bring this one in?
Yeah. Well, hello there, folks. Welcome to another lovely episode of Next Generation's First Generation. I am your host, Sascha Shouties, and with me I have the other host. Who is it? Patrick!
Me, Patrick Delmore.
Yay! Okay, so folks, I know you're just about ready to step outside and get ready for your New Year's plans. So are you going to a party? Are you going to celebrate in a bunker? We don't know what's going on, and you probably don't either, because we are time traveling. We've actually recorded this all the way back in September, so we hope that the new year is treating you well and that 2021 is way better than 2020. I think everybody can agree that it's just kind of been a hot mess of a year, but we were awfully happy to provide you quality premium Star Trek commentary for this COVID crisis.
Looking back at that magical year of 1990, where the millennium was 11 years away and the future was looking bright. George Bush the First was president.
And I remember the Animaniacs theme song where they were saying welcome to the 90s. That was kind of like their catchphrase in that show. Yep. So what are we watching today? We are watching The Loss. It's a Deanna episode, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it is also, let's see here, it is a Whoopi Goldberg episode too, so we get to see a little bit of Whoopi.
Yep.
I really like her. All right, so without further ado, you know the routine. Here comes the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, and engage.
Lots of good music in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is one where the sci-fi is so Voyager. By which I mean Star Trek Voyager. But the family stuff in this, how the crew interacts with one another is really good. Don't care for this one, though. For a show that frequently shows us theater, either Dr. Crusher's plays or the holodeck, she is speaking like she's in a play. Deanna's client, this young ensign here. Or not really that young of an ensign. She's like our age ensign.
It almost feels like a stage performance right here.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what the script is going for, that she's not being honest with Troy, and Troy has to read her empathic emotions. But the other big thing about this episode is once Troy loses her empathy in the contrived sci-fi disaster that makes her empathy go away, she has to be able to read people's social cues, which allegedly she doesn't have any confidence in being able to do.
Well, this kind of goes into, I have this one superpower and it makes me an excellent person at the job that I do, and I've lost it.
Yep.
And she does have training in psychology. But what's really interesting about this scene is that Deanna is clearly not having it. She's got the dead eyes, she's got the crossed arms, she's got all the body language of, I am so done with this session and I just don't want to listen to this woman anymore. What was the conversation? The husband passed away? This guy named Mark?
Husband passed away and she got rid of all of his stuff. And for some reason, Troy saved one of her favorite things that belonged to the husband.
Oh. I snuck into your quarters right after he died before he threw out all his shit. And I just kind of held on to this because I knew we were going to be talking about it later.
And the ensign's receptive to that hug, but I don't think it's an appropriate hug.
Oh, no, not at all. No, it's the psychology on the show is way off base. It's kind of, you want your counselor to be your friend on TV, but in reality, they got to help you go through the hard stuff.
Yes.
The cool thing, though, is that she was having the patient do most of the talking, following the 80-20 rules, so, that's accurate. Oh, Worf screwed up again.
Worf saw our two-dimensional aliens. The ensign here is the ensign from the previous episode, Final Mission.
You think that's because he's such a two-dimensional character? Oh, we've got the mind problems with Deanna. The sinus headache head roll.
This has one of the most famous Troy, not a meme because it's animated, but it's got the farting Troy.
Oh, the still frame. Yeah, where everybody's looking at her like, he must really have to go to the bathroom.
Yep.
Oh, there she goes. No! Her poor head. She just does not know how to ask for help.
Field of plain polarized objects has just appeared.
But
and disappeared.
Data's confused. What's going on?
Everything is something happened to my screen. There we go.
Ghost tailing us all the way to sleep beta.
I'm not convinced it is a ghost. There may be something.
Ghosts? Wait, what? Are they talking about ghosts now?
Yeah, it might as well be ghosts. I mean, it's just the technobabble. What's it?
Yeah,
It's two-dimensional aliens that somehow carry the ship around with them.
Towing it around like an anchor. Well, as we had opened with, this episode aired on December 31st, 1990. The music is by Dennis McCarthy, and I think you were saying a little bit earlier, there's a lot of really good music in this episode.
Yes, well, it's a short episode. It ends on an unusually long musical sting.
Okay. We have, this is directed by Chip Chandler Bing? Chandler Bong? No, not quite. And then there's a variety of folks. Now, you said this was a Voyager like episode. Who
it is.
Person?
It's written. Jerry Taylor is one of the many writers credited for this one. Yeah, it's a story where actually not all that different from what happened in the episode before this, Final Mission. They're towing something. It seems like they're not going to be able to figure out like how to not catch radiation poisoning, and in this one, they're being towed somewhere and need the towing to stop. And how they do it is by a bunch of just made up words. So it's technobabble. So it's all kind of Deus Ex Machina.
Kind of a nice, juicy, recycled episode. I honestly have mixed feelings about Troy episodes. They're either really good or really bad. You remember the episode? It's a late season episode where her and Riker had to solve a telepathic murder.
Yeah, it had some neat elements to it, but I just read a really good book. Again, Troy is treated a lot better in the novels than she is in the shows.
Yeah, she is.
A really good book called Contagion, where she and Worf have to solve a mystery on the Enterprise.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, Contamination, that was the name of it.
That's something that's a pairing you don't normally see, Troy and Worf.
Well, not back then anyway, because this was written to come out during the third season of the show.
I have discovered, sir, a certain level of impatience.
Chip Chalmers.
Chip Chalmers. There we go. That's how you say it.
Oh, good little joke here. Data's like, yeah, you didn't like it when I used to calculate things to the nearest second. And it's like, that's bad command form, what Riker did. Yes, Data, how long it's going to take to get somewhere. And Data rounds it down to the nearest minute. And Riker's like, what, no seconds? That's like a parent, like, when you're doing your homework and they're like, oh, so now you're deciding that you need to do your homework.
Right. I see it more like Data's
it's
like
negative reward for positive behavior.
Jesus Christ, what the heck do you want from me? So, oh, there she is. She is still hurting in her office.
Yep.
You think that she'd be quicker to call for help? I mean,
You would be, especially on the Enterprise, where, I mean, the people in the medical room are probably friends of yours, you know?
Yeah, well, her and Dr. Crusher are almost besties.
Yeah.
They had that really awkward yoga moment, so they get along really good.
I mean, in the real world, you know, when you have an emergency, you got to explain to a doctor your whole medical history.
Mm-hmm.
Not so with Troy and Crusher. Just like, yeah, I know what's up.
Whatever's pulling us sure isn't in a hurry.
It's kind of nice how they're, showing in parallel what's happening both to the ship and to Troy, just to really nail it in that whatever's happening is having an effect on Deanna. Mm-hmm.
1/4 impulse.
So Chip Chalmers, I'm really bad with names, I'm sorry. So he was in he directed a lot of Star Trek episodes. He was in Ethics, The Wounded, The Loss, and your favorite, Captain's Holiday.
Hey.
He also did several Deep Space Nine episodes, Take Me Out to the Holosuite, and The Magnificent Ferengi. Yep. And get this, he was also directed some Miami Vice episodes. So, hey, you gotta find work where work finds. It just kind of comes up, and you gotta take it.
Make it so, Ensign.
Well, here we go. They're revving the engines. They've tried rocking the ship back and forth. They probably put a couple of boards under the nacelles, and they just can't get out of this rut. They are stuck in space. But I don't believe they've identified the two-dimensional plane yet. Oh, hey, look at that.
Oh, like she said, I got here as quickly as I could. She's like, Guinan made cookies and she was giving away free samples. You know, I don't normally like raisins. Anyway, how are you, Deanna?
Now this is good doctoring.
Yeah.
She says, I want to take you to the sickbay and do some scans. And then they're called to a meeting, and she goes, are you up to going to this meeting?
Yep.
Deanna just realized she can't get a read. You saw that scared, vacant look. Whoa, look at that. Cutaways pan out.
Yep, that looks like definitely an early CGI Enterprise right there, not the model.
What is your analysis?
Well,
Tactical sensor readings.
here we go. We're going to get the report from all the department heads. Will, what are you going to say? Sensors? I want to hear about your HR problems with Ensign Shelley there on Deck 12.
Mm-hmm.
Does she have a headache? Is that why you're here at this meeting now? This is not the first time that Deanna's kind of been emotional in a staff meeting. The difference is that she's included in the conversation. She's sitting at the table, everyone's kind of paying attention to her, and they're concerned. Now, take it back to the child, where she had she was very emotional about being unexpectedly pregnant, and they sat her at the other end of the table and were talking about her in the third person, rather than addressing her directly.
That was messed up.
Yeah, and so I really think that they're finally giving the character the equity she deserves.
Yes. I like, we talked about her and Riker's relationship in Future Imperfect. And in this one is kind of interesting because Riker is like... Riker very disingenuously later on says that because she doesn't have her empathic abilities, now they're equals. He's what he's saying is that now she can technically be under his thumb. Basically, even though on the Enterprise she's his subordinate, she can still trump him in in the social pecking order.
Oh yeah.
So now Riker's like, you might need a crutch, a sexy bearded crutch, and I'm here to be it. And he's very, very, very bad at making the pitch.
Yes. I'd agree with that.
Now I'll do my homework.
So, they're having this conversation about how she's going to go back to work and not have these skills of her being an empath. And she's reaffirming, he's like, look, there are other qualified therapists, and you're a qualified therapist. I mean, you can do this.
There are no medical objections.
So I just found out that we don't know until the episode Disaster that she's a lieutenant commander.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it was not Admiral Iguana who it was. It was that Cardassian espionage episode where the new captain came in and made her wear a uniform.
Yes.
I think that's where we learned what her rank was.
No, it was because when and again, this is an episode that comes later. Let's talk about this conversation between Riker and Troy before we get into what her rank is.
Yeah.
How they start to treat you differently.
So she's talking about, what it's like to be visibly disabled.
Sometimes they avoid you altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Which is not something that Riker has ever thought about. Like he would if his leg fell off and he couldn't regrow it, he'd be a lot more ugly than Troy is right now. A lot more ugly than Troy is right now. I do like that he reaches out to her with the Imzadi, which is actually not said very often on the show.
Well, it's always done in private. And it's usually when Riker needs to bring things back to reality.
Non-verbally, too.
Yeah. Well, he loves her. And as much as of a pig he is a decent human being when it comes to this relationship.
Mm.
And he feels a little helpless, and she's kind of saying, get back, let me do my thing.
So to go back to what I was saying, the reason that we find out that she's a lieutenant commander is because it's Ro, O'Brien, and Troy trapped on the bridge of the Enterprise. And Ro, knowing that O'Brien is enlisted and Ro is an officer, even though she's only an ensign, decides to take charge. And Miles O'Brien does the only thing he can. He's like, no, ma'am. Counselor here holds the rank of lieutenant commander.
Okay.
So, yeah, you don't tell me what to do.
Here's the source material for the CGI Enterprise right here. Oh, they discovered the extra layer of stars.
Mm-hmm.
Data has just invented the first Instagram filter.
Yeah.
Results still inconclusive.
Well, it's not a layer of stars. They're two-dimensional beings. So if you look at them from the way that they were looking at them, because they forget, it's Star Trek. They forget that space is three-dimensional. Now this bugged me.
Oh no!
Watched. Feeling of that room is
Technical difficulties. Patrick just kind of cut out.
I did?
Oh, you're
no.
back now. All right,
Okay.
So you were talking about the room.
Yeah, the ceiling of the room is not that high,
No?
as that shot would allow you to believe.
Oh, yeah.
You can see the ceiling when they're standing up.
They took the lid off of the magic box to get that shot.
Yeah.
So this actress, her name is Kim Brandon, and she's kind of been a TV actress from the late 60s all the way up to
Kim Braden.
94. And she played in Star Trek Generations. She was Elise Picard. So, they recycled her a couple times. She was also in Murder, She Wrote, Perry Mason, Alienation.
Huh.
Yeah, she's done a lot of, trashy TV. There's nothing wrong with trashy TV. It's just, there it is.
We almost did a commentary for Alien Nation.
Oh, I'm so glad we didn't.
Yeah.
It's good to go back and watch older programs like that and see that they haven't aged very well when it comes to the social commentary.
Truth.
Yeah, I just had this conversation today with the Gilmore Girls. So my good friend and his wife are currently watching the Gilmore Girls, and And I just like, I can't watch that show anymore just because there's a lot of shame that's kind of being thrown and judgments made. And that's actually one of the things I like about Star Trek, to bring it back to the episode, is that they're very well self-contained in their judgments. And like, you'll have bad episodes, but you won't have bad arcs of judgment, if that makes any sense. Oh, so we've just demonstrated how two-dimensional objects work. So what Data did was he projected an image of the two-dimensional plane and rotated it so it disappeared, and then it reappeared when it rotated.
Somehow they're able to polarize the graviton field as they move about.
Now, did they discover if these beings were sentient or not?
That apparently the only way to figure that out is to have Troy read them, and she can't. And the nonsense explanation for why not is there's too many of them.
Well,
so rather than have sensory overload, her extrasensory ability just shut off.
Well, what about Mr. Sensitive Pizza Guy in Tin Man? Remember that guy?
Yep.
Who is super sensitive to every little thing, and he could listen to each conversation on the ship. He would be your man for this episode. He'd be like, "Oh,
his head would have just exploded."
That, or he'd be able to tell him, "Go away," and then they'd just like, "Oh, okay." Episode over in 2 minutes.
Which would be cool, if Troy got her powers back earlier, if that's what she did. But what they do instead is it's like, we're drifting toward a piece of cosmic string. I've read about those in magazines. What if we made our ship vibrate like string? Yes, let's do that.
All right, now she's in the panic phase of loss.
Yep.
Is like, I can't do what I'm doing. In fact, there's several stages of loss, and I'm wondering if she's going to hit them all.
Maybe.
Come on, Google. How do you people live like this? That's great. Well, we wake up and we do the best we can. We use our eyes and ears and emotional intelligence.
How can you know what it's like to lose something you never had? I don't claim to. And yet you're telling me...
Okay, so the 7 stages of grief are shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, the upward turn, reconstruction and working through, and then acceptance and hope. This character goes through that a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Not just in this episode. They do the full circle.
Now compare the 7 stages of grief with the stages of the hero's journey and see how similar they are.
The hero's journey?
Yeah.
All right. Ordinary world. Call to adventure. Refusal of the call. Meet the mentor. Crossing the threshold. What the heck? Tests, allies, enemies. Approach of the innermost cave. Ordeal. Holy cow, they just wrote Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Holy freaking smokes.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it.
She's avoided the reality of what happened.
So why would Troy be reporting out to Picard about someone on her caseload?
Well, she's giving it as an example of why she doesn't want to be the ship's counselor anymore.
Oh, okay, so gotcha. Oh, she's resigning already. Holy cow.
I can no longer fulfill my obligations. What other option is there?
I've lost count of how many people have tried to quit and failed on this show. It kind of reminds me, this is going to be a really weird connection. So back during the Iraq War, you had Donald Rumsfeld and Bush Jr. And Rumsfeld actually tried to turn in his resignation, and Bush Jr. just said, "No, I don't accept this." And so Rumsfeld just kept on working.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Who was in World War II, one of the guy that was in charge of airplane production.
Okay.
Kept trying to quit on Winston Churchill.
no doubt create.
And Churchill would not accept his resignation.
Uncomfortable around the disabled.
Wow, now this is a really
And I'm telling you,
odd statement. She goes that people are uncomfortable around the disabled.
Yeah.
And you know, for
And that terminology would not still exist, just like when we talked in Future Imperfect about really gendered language. This, how she speaks about the disabled is...
It's pretty cruel.
Yeah, it is.
And good thing Jordy wasn't standing in the room. Holy
Right.
freaking smokes. I just like, excuse me, I have a disability and I'm a department head.
Yeah.
And I can do my jobs and I can see way more than you.
Yep.
Well, you know, this is, keep in mind, in the 80s, in the 90s, actually that whole generation, 60s, 70s, and 80s, if you were disabled, you were no longer a functioning participant of society. Your role was to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I mean,
really...
This
is right around the time when the Americans with Disability Act came into play.
The original Bush.
That's twice now we've made Bush references.
Good response. He just holds her, lets her talk.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna pull a major asshole move. Unfortunately.
Uh-oh.
If he had just shut up.
Sure.
She makes a joke about how, what do you do this with everybody else on the ship? You'd be surprised how far Hug goes with Geordi or Worf. That's funny because, like, I bet Geordi hugs it out with some of the people on the ship.
Oh,
not Commander Riker, but I bet he's hugged it out.
I don't think Worf is a hugger. I think he's a snuggler.
You walk away.
I think that, like, when he's in it, it's all the way. He's like, okay, we're going full-time snuggles here.
I look around me,
Yep.
and all I see are surfaces without depth.
Now, this is the true trauma processing here. It's she sees things, but they don't feel real. Now this is an actual believable response. Her resignation should have come in after this speech, not before.
Believe that.
You have no idea how frightening it is.
You know, it's funny when I was in, what was it, third grade? Yeah, I want to say third grade, maybe second. I learned I had to get glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I burst into tears. I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. Why did I cry? Because I didn't need another reason for people to pick on me.
Yeah.
Not because I couldn't see. In fact, when I put on glasses for the first time, I didn't know what I was missing. I'm like, whoa, you mean I'm supposed to see a tree across the street? That's amazing. Like, I always knew it was a tree, but I just saw it as a big green blob. And I just thought that's what everybody saw.
I never had that experience with glasses. I've got really messed up eyes. I have terrible depth perception. And I wore glasses kind of to correct my eye from turning in, which apparently it did. But I was also told all the time, like, you have glasses. Like, why has your behavior not changed?
Oh my goodness!
So I had the more of the negative side to having glasses.
Yeah. Well, they almost thought it's like, well, this external thing is going to fix what we don't like about you.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying is like, we don't like you, and we thought it was going to change. And honestly, that's what Deanna's going through right now. She feels like no one's going to respect her as a professional, and now she's losing her grip, and that she can't read the world. I mean, everything's
Picard's not going to have her sit next to him on the bridge anymore and tell him what despots are thinking.
Can you imagine what would happen to your body if you're just sitting next to a warp engine? I mean, that's what these that's what these two-dimensional creatures are doing. Well, the lady at the helm, her name's Mary Connert.
Mm-hmm.
She was a guest star, and she made her film debut supporting a role in the television movie 2.5 Dads.
I would not want to be the half dad, I tell you what.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
She was also Big Man on Campus and Beyond the Door 3. Oh, and then Mr. Baseball. I remember that movie.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Baseball.
Yeah.
Tom Selleck.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Follow up on it, Mr. Data.
didn't know how to use the toilet.
Input your observations into the universal
Um,
translator.
You know what baseball I remember from the 90s is that was it the movie that Marilyn Monroe was in? They were trying to make an all-female baseball team back in
Marilyn Monroe's not in it, but it's
who was it? Not Marilyn Monroe, sorry. Madonna.
yes, A League of Their Own.
Yes.
Which I would have liked to. I think it was 1990, so I don't think we're going to be able to do audio commentary for it. But it was on my list because the same woman that directed Big directed that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also free on most platforms to watch. It's been more than a minute since I watched it, but I like that movie a lot. You got your Gina Davis, your Bridget Fonda. Good stuff.
Little known fact, this woman right here is Whoopi Goldberg.
No kidding.
Yeah. She, I think it's funny when Whoopi and Deanna are in the same room because they both kind of have the same job, but for different intentions.
Yes, and she kind of goes after her on that, where she's like, "I'm gonna apply for your job, like better hours. People like me more." But she's testing her to be like, "You can read social cues. You are trained to do that. You know that I am not being honest with you because because you can look at me, you can register my tone of voice. You're trained to do that. You don't need a magic it's like almost like what she's really trying to tell her is it's like you are empathic because you're you, not because you're a betazoid.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it comes from the character, not by the breeding.
Yeah,
Okay.
your magic rock didn't keep tigers away. You did.
That's an interesting analogy. Is that from a movie?
No, it was something on The Simpsons, but basically it's the magic feather in Dumbo.
Oh yeah. So
he could fly on his own. He just imagined that it was the feather that made him do it. And
Gotcha.
really, I mean, Whoopi Goldberg's not going to say it, but it's it's a when you talk about the stages of grief, it's like the woman that she's talking to at the beginning of the episode who's denying that she's sad that her husband has died. Like she probably had things that was like, I wouldn't have had the confidence to do what I did without a partner.
yeah.
And Deanna Troi initially thinks that she doesn't have the confidence to do what she needs to do because she can't read people's emotions.
Oh,
But she can read people's emotions.
Here comes funny data mode. I love it when he looks confused.
Yeah.
He's just walking from station to station with a furrowed brow. Is that the...
Accelerated interstellar gases.
But you wouldn't have like successful grifters and con artists if reading people's emotions and responding to what they want was not something that you could do without being psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be a cosmic string fragment. Only
Hey, it's your conversation. Cosmic string fragment. I've read about those.
You know what we need? A cosmic cat.
Ooh. I think I've seen something like that somewhere.
The course is taking them directly toward it. And us right
Or
along.
Cookie Cat from Steven Universe.
So, I guess it's bad if they run into this string?
Yes.
Are they gonna get knotted up? Oh.
Terrible CGI Enterprise.
And this is the enhanced version too.
I know.
They had to work hard. In the opening scene, it looked super grainy in Troy's office when she was interviewing the redhead.
Sir, I recommend we fire a spread of photon torpedoes.
Look at that. Worf recommends we fire torpedoes. Do we listen to Worf?
Yes, they do.
What?
Must we destroy them to save ourselves?
Yeah.
Torpedo would have on two-dimensional beings, sir.
Nevertheless,
That's a really good point. What kind of effect does a torpedo have on a two-dimensional being?
Yeah.
Well, think of it this way. when the Q develop weapons, I'm sure they're just as lethal to you and I.
Distribution set. Detonation at 7
It's a
kilometers
Voyager
ahead of the
reference there.
Yep.
Data launch another probe, patch the monitor through to the main viewer.
You've been watching Lower Decks?
On screen.
No, I still have not. I'm waiting to reactivate my CBS, and then I'm gonna binge it. What I've been getting into right now is this anime called Agretsuo, where it's a red panda that has a a terrible office job, and they just came out with the third season.
No change in the graviton field. Torpedoes are having no effect.
Oh, the torpedoes didn't work. Now what?
Fire another volley. Directly into that field.
I'm sure we'll come up with some other BS thing to do.
Launching torpedoes. Detonation in 5 seconds.
So,
You've read Red Shirt by John Scalzi, yes?
no, I have not. I am terribly underread when it comes to Star Trek.
So it's a book about... It's just kind of a book that's a parody of Star Trek, where any situation that comes up, they have something called the box.
Okay.
The captain will come down and be like, we have this problem, and you have this long to solve it. And they put the problem in the box. And when it's time to solve it, they open the box, and there is a solution to the problem in that box.
Hey!
I'm sorry.
Oh, here we go. Janet's coming down to get a therapy session, and Troy's saying, hey, I've got to go.
This is mean to her, that it's like, you can't, you should be able to tell when I'm upset and make her, make Janet or whatever her name is, shore up Deanna. That's not fair. Even if you don't have your abilities. That's way too much to put on her.
We didn't say this. We were talking about something else, but the previous session, Deanna would have been fired for saying stuff like that to a client. Holy freaking smokes.
She doesn't have a supervisor that she answers to. And it's like Crusher kind of commented on that. She's like, well, there's people on the ship that like could do that.
Burned out.
That's why
Deanna's
The Sopranos
back.
was such a good show, is that it showed Tony's therapist going to see her therapist all the time.
Oh, now we're getting the official response from Picard. He
had his crystal a minute ago too.
Oh yeah.
Actually, has it.
He's holding it.
Less than 5 hours. Put it in the box.
So here's what's really funny is that Picard really needs her professional opinion, and she just goes, no, I'm done.
Yep. Which is her prerogative.
Yeah, but
he doesn't need her professional opinion. It's work. He wants to put her to work. He's like, part of the problem is you don't have something to do. This is Dad on a summer day where the kid comes up to him and says, I'm bored. I want you to give me money so I can do something. And Dad's like, no. You know what you need? You need a task to complete.
Go shovel these rocks and put them on the other side of the yard. And then when you're done, move them back to where you got them.
Yep.
So, do you think he's just trying to coach her, like to be a good boss, more or less?
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, we need you. Look at that.
Yeah.